All right, let's face it, as church guitar players, our pedal boards keep getting bigger and bigger. And the more pedals that we add onto our board, the more cabling we also add between our guitar and our amp. And that could be a pretty major problem. And so that's where this guy comes in, the Multi-Buffer by Pinstripe Pedals. There's a lot of really unique features in this thing, but I think first it's important to ask the question of what exactly is a buffer and why should you care? Well, the main reason you should care is because of this problem that we just touched on. The more cabling that you're adding into your signal chain, you're actually introducing more tone suck. You're more susceptible to losing some of that high end and some of that tone that we're working so hard to get. And so what a buffer does is basically wherever you put this in your chain, it's going to take your signal and basically supercharge it, making it really strong again and sending a strong, clean signal through the rest of your signal chain. So let's hear what that sounds like in action. I'm going to play a little bit without the buffer, and then I'm going to add it in at the beginning of my signal chain. And I'll just be going through the regular output 1 setting on this, and we can hear what that sounds like. So it's definitely pretty subtle, but to me, I hear just a little bit more high end. I think there's just a bit more clarity and a little bit more definition to my notes. I don't really have too big of a pedal board though, so I've kind of kept my cabling to a minimum. But let's hear what this sounds like if I do add some more length of cable into this signal chain. So that's definitely pretty interesting. I didn't even add too much more cabling. This was the only spare cable that I had sitting around, so I just went ahead and plugged that into my signal chain. But for anybody who is maybe running longer cables to amps or to maybe some modelers that are on another board, there definitely is a bigger and bigger impact the more cabling that you have. This really is no ordinary buffer though. Like I mentioned, it's a multi-buffer, so there's a lot of other really cool functions in this thing. And one of them is actually this output 2 side that we haven't taken a look at yet. The second output acts just like the first one, so it's just an ordinary buffer, but it does also add a Jensen transformer, which might ring a bell for you Daiso Plus owners out there. So let's go ahead and plug this into the second output and see what difference that makes. So that's really interesting. I was actually expecting the second output to sound maybe even a bit punchier and brighter, but to me the first output actually has a bit more kind of snappiness to it. The thing that I noticed about the second output is that it's kind of got this softness to the attack of the note, and it actually sounds like there's like a little bit of slight compression, but it actually feels really nice. It feels really good to play. But if there's anything that's really standing out to me, it's just the clarity that this adds. To me, without having this in the signal chain, things just sound a little more fizzy and just less defined. And I feel like this just brings a whole new level of clarity to each note that I'm playing. And there are actually some more really cool functions attached to the second output on this guy, but first I do want to just mention that you don't have to run this at the beginning of your signal chain. Really, you could put this anywhere, but there's actually some really useful functions if you were to have this maybe later on in your signal chain too. Another really cool way that you can use this is actually as a stereo splitter. So let's say maybe you have a mono signal running through the majority of your pedal board, and then maybe you go into a stereo pedal or maybe even stereo amps that don't necessarily have a stereo in, and so you need something to help you get from that mono signal to that stereo signal. That's where this guy comes in. So you can go mono into this and then stereo out into either a stereo pedal or 2 amps like I'd mentioned. And the nice thing is you also get the added benefit of the buffer too, so it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And speaking of going into 2 amps, another really cool thing, like I mentioned, that is attached to the second output is there's actually a polarity reverse switch on here too. It's pretty common if you're running 2 amps or maybe 2 amp modelers to have them out of phase with one another. And it's just kind of a headache to resolve that. So it's really handy to have this on board so you can just fix that problem right here from your pedal board. There's also a ground lift that's also tied to the second output, which is really handy too. So, if there's any hum or fizz or anything like that, this definitely helps to keep things super clear. It's worth mentioning too that this second output can also be used as an active DI for recording and allows for a balance connection with a TRS cable or even a TRS to XLR adapter. Overall though, there's a lot of versatility with this thing, and it can really be a great solution if you have a big pedal board or you're just running a lot of cabling. So if you want to check this out, I'll have this linked down in the description. It's not an affiliate link or anything. Charlie, the owner over at Pinstripe Pedals, is just an extremely nice guy and just happens to make really great products as well. So you'll definitely be supporting a good dude if you decide to go check these out for yourself. Feel free to also check out this pedal board walkthrough video that I made right over here. I basically just walk through my entire pedal board from start to finish and how I dial in some of these sounds. So go ahead and check that out here, and I will see you in the next one.